So good afternoon now, guys, and welcome. And I want to reiterate and say Happy Mother's Day. Is that Mother's Day is one of these special things, is because each one of us is here because of our mothers. Each one of us. There's not one of us in this room that magically just poof, you were here. And so today is a critical day. And so and sometimes we have families where they're broken and we don't really know our moms and stuff like that. But really, the mom that you were raised with is that you should be very thankful and really just say Happy Mother's Day. I know it can be a Hallmark holiday, but it's okay to just kind of push that out there and say Happy Mother's Day. So, we have one of these things is that I have a couple of announcements, and I only do announcements when I think that they're important announcements. And so one of the important announcements is inside of each one of your guys' pockets, because I know all of you have one, is a phone that's similar to this. It could be an iPhone, it could be an Android, it could be something like that. The important thing is that you should download our new app. It has all of the stuff that kind of goes on around here, and within the next 2 or 3 weeks, you will actually be able to have all of our service notes. They will be loaded onto the app. So you'll be able to follow along. Our bulletin will be right there, and everything will be on there, and it's interactive. You can hit the pages, you can flip through it. It is a great tool for us to have as far as a church. It's going to help save us on paper. If you guys notice, we print out lots of bulletins, and we go out through. If you had it on your phone, you're already playing on your phone during service anyway, so we might as well have you interactive with what we're doing. The next thing is that occasionally some of you guys come to our Saturday night service, and on Saturday nights we have come to realize that Saturday nights we're taking you away from sometimes the things that you want to do. So sometimes you want to go to dinner. Sometimes you want to go off and you want to go out to maybe a nightclub and you want to go do dancing, or maybe you want to go do something that's other than dancing, like drinking or one of those things. And what we're doing is we're preventing you from really enjoying your weekend. And so we've come to this decision that we want to change and go from doing a Saturday night service to a Sunday evening service. So you get to go off and do all those things that you were doing before, but this allows you to be able to come to service. Maybe you go on vacation, you go out of town for the weekend, you can still make service, and it doesn't interfere with your Saturday night. Now, it's a small change, and it starts in 2 weeks. So it starts when we complete this series, it'll be the last Saturday night we do, and when we go into our next series, it will be our first Sunday night. Those are the two important announcements. And then the last thing I wanted to reiterate is that all of our events, and just in case you guys don't know this, all of our events now, it doesn't matter if we come up here and say we're going to charge $10 for that event. If you are a retired military, you're ex-military, all of our events are free for you. So we want to start this military ministry, and so if we go fishing and it's a $10 charge, it's free for you, and it's free for your family and your dependents. So any of those things, you are always welcome to go to those, even the A's game, any of that stuff. That's part of what we're going to do to give back to this military base and be able to help really start growing this ministry. So it's just the start, and we're going to start plugging into more of it. Anyway, let's dive in today. Outlasters. So we've been starting this series. We started this series 2 weeks ago, and the first week we unboxed what it means to be an Outlaster. What are we doing? How are we growing? What are we doing as a church? What are we doing as people? And how are we outlasting? Because guess what, guys? Just like you came from your mom, guess what? One day, we're all going to die. In biblical times, you might live 1,200 years, but guess what? They all still died. It happened. It does not. We don't get to live forever and ever and ever. At one point, we're going to die, and guess what? A lot of times, there's very little left of each one of us. Each one of us, there's very little left. There's nothing. A lot of times, we leave things back. We have supply. We have a house full of stuff, or we have a car, or we have, we put our kids in debt because they have to pay for a funeral. I just went through this, guys. I lost my mom, on April 11th. And so as we kind of come for this, I've really come to this realization is that how much of an outlaster can we be? What sort of position do we put our children in to succeed? And today we're going to talk about having our faith on fire, not only for us, but for our children, for the people around us. A lot of this is going to be directed towards parents. And if you're not a parent, then listen to it, because one day you may become a parent. One day you may have nieces and nephews. One day you may have stuff going on, and you are going to help mold and you're going to help grow those. It takes a village to raise a family. It takes a village to raise children. And so what we really need to do is look at through those eyes. We need to start living in such a way that we make a contribution that lasts, and that's where we get this term outlasters. Our first verse is going to be, how joyful are those who fear the Lord and delight in obeying his commands. Now, I underline this next part, and it says, their children will be successful everywhere. Their children will be successful everywhere. It's not just one of these things is that we get to stand on the sidelines and our children are going to be failures because we do what God asks us to do. It says, how joyful are those who fear the Lord and delight in obeying his commands. Now, I want you to think about something. How delightful are you that you have to follow what God has asked you to do? God has asked you to do some things. How delightful is that? Or do you look at it and go, I got to do this. I gotta love this guy that lives next to me. I got to love my neighbor. I got to love the people around me. How often are you looking at it and going, you get up and you go, man, I am so excited to go love the neighbor. It's going to be great. Or do you go, I hate this dude. Their children will be successful everywhere, and an entire generation of godly people will be blessed. Wow, an entire generation. An entire generation of godly people will be blessed. They themselves will be wealthy, and their good deeds will last forever. They are generous, compassionate, and righteous. Now here's where it gets really key, is that those who are righteous will be long remembered. Those who are righteous will be long remembered. Now I want you to start thinking about people that you've thought of in the past. I posed this question on Facebook this last week. The people that, we started getting answers from people. We started getting Martin Luther King Jr. We started getting, different answers. Like if you're in the church world, just Martin Luther would be somebody that's hugely remembered. You start looking at some of these things, and you start looking at what's going on. And if you guys don't know, Martin Luther started the Protestant movement, and we all came from Catholics because of him. And so when you start hearing these things, and you start hearing people that are, outlasters, that things continue to go on and on and on, what sort of, these are righteous people. They always seem to do the right thing. They always consulted with God. They made the right, they said, God, which way do you want me to go? They didn't make some of these spur-of-the-moment choices that we make. A lot of times we make these immediate changes. We go, I have to have it right now. It's one of these things, I want it, and I want it now, and I'm going to make any decision, and I'm going to do anything to get there. I meet with people and I tell them, put together a plan, a step-by-step plan. It's not one of these things that it's going to happen immediately because it doesn't usually work that way. What sort of plan do you have? You want a new car? Well, what sort of plan are you doing to get there? Or are you going to go, I'm going to go put myself in debt? You want to get a house? What sort of debt and what sort of position are you putting yourself into? Is it a righteous decision or is it an immediate decision that you look at and go, I want it right now and I have to have it and this is the right choice for me and my family that's going to be long remembered? Because I will tell you, your children, when you are struggling to make the house payment, they will remember that. They will remember the bondage that they've been placed in because they couldn't do all the things that they were supposed to do, that you wanted them to do because your hands were so tied because you bought something because you were like, I have to have this one. I have to have this car. I have to have the newest iPhone. I have to have the newest things. And sometimes we place our family in bondage. Culture says that that says success is raising well-rounded, well-educated, happy kids. That's what culture says. Culture says that we're supposed to raise these well-rounded kids, that we're all supposed to become, minivan moms. If you're a guy, I'm sure you're looking forward to that. You want that space-age looking minivan, and you're looking forward to driving that all the time. And you got to tote your kids from place to place, and you have this taxi. It should say mom or dad's taxi on the side of it because we run them from dance to, we take them to baseball practice. We take them to this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing. And all of a sudden, we're running ourselves ragged trying to create happy children. We're trying to create, okay, I got to give you this. I got to give you that. I got to give you this. The Bible tells us, what good would it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? What good would it be to give them everything that they wanted? Here, let's give them that iPhone. Let's take them to this place. Let's take them to that place. Let's tote them around forever. Let's go here. Let's go there. Oh, you got to go to Disneyland 5 times a year. We got to do this. We got to do that. What good is that if they're going to lose and forfeit their soul because of the decisions that we're making as parents? The decisions that we make with our grandchildren, the decisions that we make with our nieces and our nephews, because sometimes we like being the favorite uncle or the favorite aunt. We go, I want to just feed, I just got to give you this, I got to give you that. You guys, around here, the kids love me. You know why they love me? It's because I love giving them candy. I do. It's like they come to me and the first time they ask me, they're like, can I have some? Absolutely. And I go, wait a minute. I said yes and didn't even talk to your parents. That's okay. Here, I'm Pastor Mike. They'll forgive me. But Just because we give them what they want doesn't mean that they're going to go home and be great children for their parents. They're not going to go home and be like, Pastor Mike gave me a lollipop. I'm going to be so good for you now. In fact, they're going to probably be bouncing off the walls. I try and find the most caffeinated thing to give them. I go, hey, you want some of this Red Bull? Here you go. Tastes a little funny, but you'll get used to it. That's just how it goes. We start looking at it, just because they want it doesn't mean that you give it to them all the time. And so you have to start looking at things and go, what sort of decisions and what am I doing and what sort of position am I putting my children's future into? Am I raising them to be happy, or am I raising them to be ready? What's the question? Are you raising your children for readiness or happiness? Because if it's about happiness, that's going to be very tough, because, guys, each one of you has had heartbreak. Each one of you has had stuff that's happened, and life isn't always happy. Stuff happens. Things go on, and where you go, man, why did that happen, and why did that happen, and why did this go on, and why did they leave, or why did that happen? Life has got a lot of heartbreaks, and it's got a lot of, you lose jobs out of nowhere sometimes. They just come in and go, we're downsizing, you're gone. What do you mean? You said you're downsizing. Why am I the only one leaving? What is it? Start looking at it and start thinking about it and start going, are you really preparing your children for what's going to be an outlasting lifestyle, or are you just preparing them for today? For me, I believe that we are called to unleash Christ-centered, biblically anchored world changers. We're called to really just raise children that are going to be Christ-centered, biblically anchored, and they're going to be world changers. And I know you're looking at this and you're going, wow, man, Mike, you're putting a whole lot on this. You're putting everything out there. We're called to they got to be Christ-centered. They got to be biblically anchored. That sounds like a lot of work. I'm just trying to keep shoes on their feet and a roof over their head. We look at this and go, oh, world changer? I got to raise my child to be a world changer? Guess what? Our world starts right here. It starts right here. It starts right in this church. It starts right in this community. It starts right in this city. It starts right in the neighborhoods around us, this county. We can change this world by doing small things right here, right now. There's things that we can change immediate. We've gotten to this point where instead of raising well-rounded children, we've gotten to the point where we've actually held them back. We've made it to where they don't even socialize with the kids on the street. We're afraid to let them walk out the front door. We're afraid to let them go outside and just go say hi to the neighbors. At our house, we built a fence that blocks our neighbors out. We did it because, hey, we want some privacy, and we want to be able to relax, and we want to be able to use our front yard. But really, that's how we look at it. That's the logic we look at it. But our children look at it and go, ooh, it's a defense mechanism. They look at it and go, well, they won't want me out there because they're afraid of what the neighbors are going to do or say, or they're going to get taken. Or this is the culture that we're raising them at such a small age. Guess what? My children I have 16, 8, and 3. They turn 8 and 3 this month. And so you look at it and you go, we are raising them at such a small age that not even to trust the people that live right next door to them. We build these walls and we build them up and we go, don't go past that because you could get taken. And granted, that's a very reality. But you guys remember when you were a child, most of you guys in here, as I look around, there's nobody in here that's young enough except for the one that's never even been on a bicycle. But your parents would go, hey, I'll see you at sundown. And you would walk out the door and you would be gone. Gone. Guess what? You're all still here. You're all still here. The strangers that picked you up, they dropped you off immediately. They're like, oh, yeah, there's something wrong here. Here you go. But you're all still here. And guess what? You probably had friends on your street. You probably knew the neighborhood kids. Your parents probably knew their parents because you talked. We've eliminated that. It's gone. Because we're so afraid. How are we actually raising people that are going to be the light of the world? How are we raising people that are going to be the friends that they can look to? They go, this is who I'm going to look to and who I'm going to do life with. And these are the things that are going to go. We've actually created the opposite. And we've gone, don't socialize with the neighbors. Be afraid at school. Be afraid of this. Be afraid of that. We need to manage the exposure, but also still allow them to be the light. What we expose them to determines who they will be. What we expose them to will determine who they will be. What are you exposing your children to? Because a lot of times we have so many problems going on at home that they don't ever get to experience the good things that are out there too. We live in such debt. We live in sometimes poverty. We live in sometimes we're just full of anger. People are yelling and screaming at one another in the house. We have arguments. We have all these things going on. That's what your child is being exposed to. What do you expect them to grow into? If your nieces and nephews have that going on, or if your co-workers have that stuff going on, what are you exposing your children to? If that's all they see, then how are they ever going to develop into readiness people instead of happy people? The Bible tells us, it says that we need to walk with the wise and become wise. For the companion of fools suffers harm. Walk with the wise and become wise. For a companion of fools suffers harm. It's Proverbs 13:20. Now, here's what I want you all to do. I want you to look at the 5 people you hang out with. Now, if you don't have 5 people you hang out with, that's okay too. Maybe you only have 1 person that you hang out with. But if you have 5 people, look at those immediate 5 people. Guess what? That is who you are. So all the negative habits they have, all the things that they have going on, that is you. Those 5 people, that is you. That is how you identify, and that is how people identify you. Now, I want you to change this around a little bit and look at the 5 people your children hang out with. Look at the 5 people that your child hangs out with. Guess what? When you look at them, you go, that's a spoiled brat. That one there has got this going on, or that one going on, and that one's got a foul mouth. Well, guess what? When your child's not around you, that's what you have. That is exactly what you have. So the 5 that they hang out with, and you can thank Mr. Price for that quote. The 5 that they hang out with is who your child is. So when you say, and they go, oh, it's just so-and-so that's doing that. Well, guess what? It's not just so-and-so doing that. Your little Tommy is doing it as well. They are all hanging out, and they're all doing the things that you're one that you look at and go, oh, why is he acting like that? Because that's what they do. Who are you exposing them to? Do you want to expose your children to fools? You know, when you read this, it says the companion of fools suffers harm. Do you want to expose your children to fools? Nobody in here is raising their hand. I don't see anybody, yeah, let's do it. No, that's not happening here. Everybody's in here, no, I want my child to be around, I want them to be around wise people. Then why aren't they in church? Why are your children not here? A lot of times we look around and you go, why are they here? If they live in your home, guess what? They do your rules. So when they get to this point and they go, oh, I'm 17, I don't have to go to church. I'm still providing for you. Get in the car. You're going. I don't care if you like it. It's actually probably better that you don't like it. Because if you liked it, that means that they were probably doing something wrong. Get in the car. We're going. What is it that you are raising your children to understand? Is it a priority to be here? Is it a priority? You've exposed your children to bad attitudes. Some of you guys have over-sexualized your children. I walked into somebody's house recently, and they had a stack of Playboys sitting on the coffee table. I said, come on, you knew that Pastor Mike was walking in the door, hide the Playboys. I mean, it was like you laid them out for me. They were fanned out and everything. They were like, yes, these are perfect. Do you like this? No. Hide that stuff from me. It was like walking into a massive pile of dog crap right at the front door. Like, hey, come on in. We love this stuff. That's exactly how I felt. Think about it. They had children running around this house. If they had children running around this house, this is what this child gets to see. Can you imagine? If they're leaving that out for me, what else is the child seeing? Can you imagine the porn videos that are just playing and the kids walk in and they're like, what's that? Oh, that's baby making. And they're 3 or 4. Think about what we're doing. Think about what we put out there. We expose our children to materialism. They get to this point where everything is about what they have. I have to have the newest iPhone. I have to have this. I have to have the newest car. I have to have the newest, whatever it is. I don't care what it is. I have to go get the new Jordans. I have to go get a new pair of shorts. I love the conversation. I was driving with Cameron a couple days ago, and Cameron goes, I need to go get some shorts. And he goes, is there a thrift store around here? What sort of questions do your children look at? They go, I can get the same thing. Or do they want to go to the mall and go spend $85 on one pair of pants and one pair of shorts? $85. I walked into a Lucky Brand store, and they wanted $200 for a pair of jeans. Are you serious? I can buy 20 pairs of jeans for that price. 20. And I will steal your labels and put them on them, and everybody will think those are great jeans. A lot of times we get to this point where we've created children that are prejudiced at this point. We hide them, we close them off so much that they really start to hate their neighbors. We've created this defense mechanism. We go, you're safe when you're in here. Well, all of a sudden, everybody else out there is bad. And so they look at it and they go, well, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. And all of a sudden, they become prejudiced to the outside world. And we go, why is it that we have such a video game nation? We have a video game nation because we created it. We created it by hiding our children inside the house and by not allowing them to really explore who they're supposed to be and what God has asked them to be. We've taken them back and said, sit here, watch TV, and play video games instead of going outside and enjoying the sunshine. You wonder why your kids are so white if you've got white kids. You know, you put your kids, they wear shorts and they walk outside and you go, oh my God, go get some self-tanning lotion for mom. Do something, because it gets to this point, you look at them and go, they never go outside. I'm not saying you can force somebody to love God, but you can expose them to the experiences that will increase their likelihood of spiritual growth. Expose them to the joy of knowing God personally. You have to expose your children to that. You can't hold them back. Jesus in John 17, he says, this is eternal life. He says, that they may know my Father. Think about this. Do your children really know God? Do your children know God? Do they say they know God, or do they really know God? Do they see what's happening? And I'm not saying you have to push the rules. You don't have to start going, and your house doesn't have to become legalistic. Oh, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. No, it just says, did you give them the gift of the relationship? Did you give them the gift of the relationship with God? Or do you stop back and you go, nope, I'm not going to give them that. Rules without a relationship starts becoming rebellion. That's what happens. Rules without a relationship becomes rebellion. Perfect example. You ever seen somebody that's standing on the street corner? They got one of those signs. It says it right there. No Jesus. Or, it says, Jesus saves. All others die. You ever seen that one? That one was right across the street from the Daily Republic a couple weeks ago. And so for me, my first thing is, that person's crazy. That's how I feel. They're screaming at people in their cars. What does that do for Christians? It gives us the worst name. It makes us look like we just don't know how to reach people. You need to have a relationship with people before you can ever invite them into church. Before you can ever invite them in here, you have to have a relationship with them. Rules without a relationship causes rebellion. Think about that. Because what people do is they scream out the window at that person. They spit at her. I've watched it happen. I stood there and I watched them over and over again. And she just danced through it, though. It was weird. I mean, she just kept going and going. It's like she was called to be on that corner. But, guys, I will tell you is that when people do that, we step back and it makes us go, I'm not going to church. There's no relationship. Do you start looking at it, do your children go, look at how much God has already blessed us. Look at what he's already given us. Look, he provided this home for us. Look at where he took us from. Because I know some of your past, and God's delivered some of you guys from pretty far places. I mean, I know he delivered me from a really far place. And so I know I can look at some of you guys and I can go, look at where you're at now compared to where you were, and look what God has already done. Do your children know that? Do your grandchildren know that? Do your family, do your friends know that? Because you're really doing a disservice to your friends if you don't share that with them and have them this opportunity to really know God, know that joy, know what he can do. You are really basically told all your friends to go to hell. That's what you've told them. Look at what God's already done for me. And if you don't say that, you're saying, by the way, my life is perfect, you go to hell. That sucks. Let's change it up a little bit. Let's expose them to the joy. Let's expose our friends, our family, our children. You can't have a relationship without time and conversation. Do your children see that time and conversation happening at home? Have you exposed them to your relationship with God? Have they ever seen you actually open the Bible up? Has your friends ever seen you open a Bible up? Because a lot of times you rely on this little Bible app, and I've gone to this reference so many times. Apparently I should just have a phone up here, but have you opened, we go, I'm on my Bible. Really? It looks like you're on Facebook. I'm reading the Bible. Well, this is what your children see because you spend so much time on Facebook already or on Twitter until they look at it and go, oh, really? You're reading the Bible right now? Instead, why don't you actually pick up an actual Bible? Because at most houses you walk into, and that thing has got like an inch of dust on the top of it. Your children don't know what it's like to read the Bible. You come to our house, there's Bibles everywhere. It kind of happens when you become a pastor. People start going, hey, read this one. Okay, I've already read a few of them. I'll read yours too, why not? And so you have a collection, but our children also have a collection of Bibles. And if you go into their playroom, they have kids' Bibles that are for their ages. And they will fight over a Bible. Can you imagine having to tell your children, don't fight over that Bible? Can you imagine that conversation? But this is how much our children actually want to read the Word. They will fight over it. They will, give me that. Really? The Bible? It's not the TV remote? Think about it. Think about the change, the shift that could happen in your household if you gave them something that they actually wanted to do, but they see you doing it, so they go, I want to be like mom and dad, because that's what our children want to do. Our children want to be like us. They do. And so they look at you and they go, I want to be there. Well, if you're never reading the Bible and you're never praying, then how are they supposed to do that? My child, we popped some popcorn here. We had this nice little popcorn popper. My daughter comes in and goes, oh, can I have some popcorn? She took the bag of popcorn and prayed over it before she walked away and ate. These are things that we didn't do with instruction. They just do on their own because they do it so often at home. What sort of example do they see? What are you doing? I said at last service, do you eat around the dinner table or do you eat around the coffee table? Because the coffee table is designed for coffee and your newspapers and apparently somebody's Playboys. But it's not designed for your dinner meals. It's not designed for you to go over there and sit down and put your dinner. Guess what most of you guys do? You put your feet on the coffee table. Yummy feet. Because how often do you actually clean the table before you actually put your food down there next? That sounds delicious. I love toe jam. Yum. I'm sorry. I had to kind of put it in perspective for you. Get around the dinner table, by the way. Number 2, you need to expose your children to the presence and power of God in His church. You have to do it. You have to expose them to it. So often, we start making choices of what we're going to do. You miss church, you actually miss a lot. You step back and you miss a couple weeks of church, all of a sudden you have no idea where we're at in a series. We're 3 weeks into a series now. You have no idea what we talked about the first week or the second week. You don't know what's going on. Maybe you followed along on live stream. Maybe you caught it on YouTube or whatever it was. You have no idea what's going on because on YouTube you don't really get the message. You don't get to experience the presence of God. There is nothing like worshiping together. There is nothing like singing together. There is nothing. You get in the car and you can blast Caleb, or maybe you listen to whatever you listen to. But when you blast it and you're singing along in the car, guess what? You are by yourself. And there is nobody worshiping you, and you get done with it and you go, I didn't feel God's presence that time. No, you experience God's presence here with other believers. Not in the car by yourself going down the freeway, and as soon as you get stuck in traffic, you start yelling at the windshield. Are your children experiencing this? You miss a lot. There's never been the question in our home. It doesn't happen. Granted, our home is a little more immersed in church. We kind of live here. But the question never comes up on Sunday morning where my daughter walks in and goes, hey, Dad, are we going to church today? Hasn't been a question in 7 years, 8 years. They don't ask that question. They know Sundays, we're going to church. Sundays, we're going to go experience God's time together. Sundays is reserved for Him. They don't ever ask that question. They know we're going to church today. Now, if you have a child at home and they're at home right now, we should grab them and bring them to church. They should be here. If you have a niece or nephew at home, they should be here. We can't make things better because a lot of times we hear, oh, my kids don't like it. Well, then we need to know that so we can make it better. Or they don't like this. We need to know that because guys, this is their church. It's not my church. It's not my plan. It is your church. We do everything we do to help you grow. Not for me to grow. It's for you to grow and for your children to grow. And so if that's not happening, we need to know about it so that way we can make the adjustments necessary in order to make service relevant for them. It has to be relevant, and it has to be something they enjoy. But if we don't know, or if we find out because, oh, they're not here, what happened? Communicate with us. We have connection cards. It actually says on the back of it, how was your experience? What did your kids say? What did they think? We read every connection card. We don't just collect those and goes, hey, we have a nice little stack of these in the other room. We actually implement most of the stuff that you put on there. There's changes that we do. At your house, school isn't an option, right? You have children at home, they're going to go to school. It's going to happen. You don't let them just go, oh, Mom, I don't feel like going to church today, or I don't feel like going to school. No, get up. I will put this belt around your neck and you will go to school. That's what happens. You will make it happen. At work, you do the same thing. If your child had a job, guess what happens? Get to work. You will fulfill your responsibilities. If they're in soccer, now I had a daughter in soccer, and she hated every day of it, but we made her finish the season. You're going. You committed to this. You committed your lives to Christ, almost every one of you in here. Your child has been committed to Christ. It's not softball, it's not soccer, it's not baseball, it's not whatever else. How come we don't treat it the same way? This is your eternal salvation that we're talking about. Not 6 weeks in soccer, not 18 years in school. This is eternal. This is forever. And we don't expose them to it, and we actually withdraw them from it. And we go, well, I wonder why my kid's out running around, whatever it is. Look at this neighborhoods. Look at what's happening in the city of Fairfield right now. Shooting after shooting after shooting. People being robbed. It's just happening over and over again. Tells us that we really didn't expose those kids to church because they would love one another. They would love God. And they would know that taking a life, or even one of those, that they know that life is so precious. But they just weren't there. We didn't expose them to God's power. Do you want to go to church? Should never be a question that happens at your house. It should be one of those things that's going to happen. Our lives revolve around God's work. And that's just how it has to be all the time. Now, I'll tell you is that for all of you that are in here right now, each one of you has had an impact on somebody else's life. Each one of you has had an impact maybe on my child's life. I want you to know is that some of you guys have served in kids' church. Some of you have invited a friend here. Well, guess what happens when you served in kids' church? You actually impacted my child because both of my children are in there. I have another child that's sitting in the back row that you guys saw, if you know this, she's been here and you've impacted her life. You've changed things. You've made things different. Each one of us has done something. You've spoken to the lives of my children. Melissa used to go off and she used to lead these girl Bible studies where she had such an impact. And now we have one that just graduated graduate school. Literally from a high schooler, just graduated graduate school, has a doctorate. Guys, do you know how much of an impact, do you know how much joy we get from seeing that type of stuff? Do you know that from going from being somebody who wouldn't call themselves a youth pastor to really plugging in and knowing what God's power was and knowing serving, and then all of a sudden people are going, Pastor Mike, I never called myself that. They called me that. It wasn't one of these things that I just gave myself a title. They gave it to me. And I look at it and I just see how these children are growing up and they're developing and they're going through, we have kids that are in the military. We have kids that are out getting doctorates. We have kids that are out getting in trouble, of course. They're still kids. Guys, you can make an impact. You can change something, and your children can be changed as well. They can go from having such a hard time and having such developmental stuff going on to where they can actually start being developed into a spiritual leadership position. You know that we take kids here, when they hit the 6th grade, we start putting them into a leadership position in base camp. So they start starting to learn how to lead groups. They start learning how to be involved and starting to help other children get through what they're going through. But if we don't have any 6th graders, we can't do that. Because that's about the time when they're like, I'm out of here, peace. I don't want to go to church. And that's about the time when we go, I don't want to fight with them. So I'll let them stay at home. Number 3, expose them to the thrill of being used by God. I just told you, starting in the 6th grade, we give them a chance to lead. There is no greater high than making a difference for Jesus. There really isn't. If you've ever served when we've gone out and we've done our restoration project and we've given food or we've taken food and delivered, there is no greater joy than to be able to help somebody else and to just go, God told me that he wanted you to have this. There's no greater joy. There really isn't. And so when you do that, you know that you're hooked onto it. Do you realize that God used you to encourage somebody else? Maybe God used you to invite somebody to church. Maybe you stood up for somebody who was being bullied. Maybe God used you to bring somebody to church today. Think about it. This might be something that's going to change somebody's life right now. Maybe the life of a future generation, and you were part of that. That's what it means to really come in and expose them to the thrill of being used by God. You know, I look around the room, and I see how things change. I see how people are brought here because they go, I don't have to be here. You do have to be here. God, or he wanted you here right now, and that's the reason why you walked in the door. There was something that was going to be connecting with you. I will tell you, as to recap this, we need to teach our children the joy of knowing God personally, the presence and the power of God, and the thrill of being used by God. It is one of these things that we have to do. If we want to unleash Christ-centered, biblically anchored world changers, we need to go off and we need to follow these steps. I'll leave you with this last verse. And it's really one of the things that just comes up, and it says, serve the Lord alone. And now, as you read this, it's kind of critical, and it says, it's not being alone and by yourself, but it's serve him alone. Nothing else. Don't put anything else in place. Serve him. Don't run around trying to serve your kids, trying to make them happy, because that's not how it works. Do what God has asked you to do. But if you refuse to serve the Lord, then choose today whom you will serve. So my next question is that are you serving God, or are you serving money? Are you serving your children to create happy little monsters? What are you doing? And then that last line is that, but as for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. Think about this. Are you and your family serving God? Are you following the plan that he's got for you? Or is it just a Sunday morning, hour and a half thing? Are you doing what he's asked you to do? Are you really following the instructions that he said, hey, do this. Just follow along with what I've got planned. Everything will work out. Or do we go, I got to keep them happy? Because you're raising happiness monsters that are looking for entitlements for the rest of their life. We can change it. But as for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. Now, write this one down. And if it's on the back of your notes, but write it down. And the reason why I say that is because my wife, at our house, we used to have Post-it notes everywhere. Everywhere. You'd walk in and they'd be on the kitchen cabinets. They'd be on, on the stairway. They'd be on the mirrors in the bathroom. They'd be, if you could put a Post-it note there and it didn't look really weird, like if you walked in the living room, it was okay, but every other room you walked into, there was Post-it notes everywhere. But they were verses. And they were constant reminders, not only for us, but also for our children. And they saw them all the time. And I'm not saying you had to put Post-it notes everywhere. But that last line there is something that you could put on your mirror, that when you get up in the morning and you look at yourself and you can go, as for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. We will take care of and we will do what we're supposed to do. And we'll follow the plan that he's ordained for our lives. Because there is a plan for each and every one of you. And we've fought it and fought it and fought it. And sometimes it's been looking at us right in the face. Have you been serving him? Have you been following the plan that he's laid out for you? Or are you just off doing your own little thing, trying to be happy? It's time for us to start making little changes in our lives, making little changes in our households. It's time for our children to really experience God, really experience the work that he can do. It's time for us to really be the light, that city on a hill for not only just us, not for our children, but also for the people around us. How many of you have friends that know you're a Christian, that know you go to a church, that know what God has done in your life? Because a lot of us, we go, well, I have a few friends that know that, but not everybody. Because we know that it changes the relationship drastically. Guys, it's okay to have that relationship change. You ever have somebody You know, it happens to me often. Somebody will say a word that may not be appropriate around a pastor. You know, they may say something that we use in everyday language sometimes, and they'll look at me and they'll go, "I'm sorry." Mr. Bryce and I had that conversation this week, and it's because of who you are. What sort of light are you shining? Are you shining a light that it's okay to talk to me with your vulgar language, with your foul mouth? Or are you shining a light that says, I don't accept that, and I know you have a bigger vocabulary than that. I know that you know other words other than F that and this, and this, and that. I know you have a bigger vocabulary. You learn it in the second grade. Guys, you can use other words, but it starts with you. And it starts with what you're saying in your home and what you're doing different. It starts here. It starts now. Start creating a world changer and start creating a family that serves the Lord. But as for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. It doesn't matter what else is going on. I will do what God has me to do. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much. Thank you so much for all that you're doing right now. The conviction that you've actually laid on some of us, where you've said that we have to change things, we have to make things different in our homes, that we have to make it a priority to start getting our children, to start trying to fight these battles, but fight them for you. That we need to start creating an atmosphere to where our house is actually serving God, not just serving happiness and serving our children to keep them from being upset or from being whiny or from whatever it is, but we need to start creating an atmosphere even around the people that they know that we know God and that we will serve Him, and that we will be the light, and that we will follow the plan that He has laid out for our lives. God, give us the wisdom to start making some changes. Give us the courage to implement them. Not only the knowledge, but just this courage to start making changes to where we can start doing what you've asked us to do, to start inviting, to start saying, standing our grounds, and stop being the best friends to our kids, but start being their parents and start preparing them for life. God, give us the strength to just stay consistent with it, to keep our follow through, to keep going, even when it's going to be a struggle and they're going to fight us, but allow us to just keep persevering to build strength in you. God, we are so thankful for where you've taken each one of us from. We're so thankful for where you're leading us to. We just ask that we can keep doing what you've asked us to do. And all this we pray in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.